Yeah, I've been excited for your presentation, that's for sure.
Well, I hope I live up to the billing.
Well, I'm sure that you will. One of the things we've supported years and years and years. They used to actually be one of our primary beneficiaries, but we continue to have our speakers sign a book that we donate to the Make Way for Books Library. And this is the
Testing. 1, 2, 1, 2. Test 1, 2.
And so I mean, like, it couldn't be more perfect. So at some point, if you don't mind signing that book, so.
Oh, I'll be
but
glad to.
when all of a sudden I was like, I can't believe that she found that. That's awesome.
Got a little creative it's very short. It's more like, did you know this thing is
As long as
I don't want to assume.
no, you're the one introducing them. So, oh yeah, you don't have to worry about the something that you didn't know about. No, because people won't remember by the time it's his birthday. So I would imagine you probably are getting a lot of requests from organizations, both locally and interviews for news stations and.
I have had a lot, and then I have a bunch more coming up. Next week I fly over to Los Angeles to give a talk to a group called the Science Philanthropy Alliance, and it's a consortium of, I think, about 11 different philanthropic groups that support science. And then the week after that, I go out to Laurel Valley and talk to their astronomy.
I just forgot. I'm supposed to at least gong them in. Good afternoon. I don't think that it's any secret that we're having a buffet today. It looks like everybody that's in here has already grabbed a plate. But if not, please go ahead and grab a plate, and we'll start the program in about 15 minutes. Thank you. Now, I don't recall how long did it take to develop.
I joined the project. We were officially selected as the team to build our campus in 2002. The first part was finding mission concept.
Okay. Afternoon, birthday boys.
Hey, thank you. How are you today?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Good. Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, they have done a wonderful job. And they really have done a great job on continually changing the menu. Back when we used to be at the DoubleTree for almost 40 years, and it was almost like a joke. It's like, oh well, it's been 5 weeks. I guess it's going to be. I ended up joining this. I was one of the, founding members, if you will. Oh, yeah. That initial group that came in, everybody was listed as a founder. I, along with everybody else, was predominantly working from home. And so there were a lot of days. What I would do is I would go up there, mid-morning, 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I'd go get one of the booths, and I would plug in, and I would just work from there, and eventually have lunch. It was nice to get out of the house and yes. Unlike my house this morning, I had no internet, and I went and unplugged and waited a little while to plug back in, and still had nothing. So I don't know if they're working on it somewhere in the area. But no.
Great book. Where'd you get the book?
Harry got it.
You got it.
I thought that was awesome.
Are we in the state? At our high water mark, we were 300. And we are what in the world? About
2.25. Oh, in the world we were 53rd, and in the U.S. we were 38th largest.
34,000 above. So pretty biggest thing, Rotary International, is the eradication of polio. And we're this close to being only 3 countries, I think, that have a case, although we've had a little spike in that.
Yep.
We got shut down in March. And then it's basically business first. We just do community service and bring in great speakers. So that's fun.
Scary to think that.
You'll love this story. Years ago, science, when Peter Smith working on the Odyssey. They were
I find myself kind of lost for words. We've decided we'd like to do something special for this particular night because a lot of things have changed. A lot of stuff is happening. And rather than words, we'd like to sing you a song written by probably the greatest rock star of all time,
Sorry to
next to
say we're
Freddie.
going to miss the party at your house.
Just another mixer.
Well, no, I would be very special.
I'm willing, got it down. Oh, okay. Well, you can't hit them all, right?
Imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try.
You know, our price points are at,
No hell below us,
my feeling is like, okay,
above us on the sky.
patio and proof for
Imagine all the people
not necessarily at the end.
living for today.
I know I can
Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard
It'll be
to
indoors and
do.
outdoors. I mean, I've got a number of heaters and
Nothing to
at the
kill
end, my
or
wife
die
somebody
for.
holiday party there on Saturday, this past Saturday. The day
No
before.
religion too.
So
Imagine all the people living life in peace. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us in the world we live as one. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us in the world we'll live as one.
welcome back, Rotarians and guests. All of our guests, we appreciate you being here today. We know it's going to be a great program. We're going to go ahead and start off with Pledge and Song. If I can have Jason Flax come on up. Joined us in March of this year with Insurance and Risk Management with Lovett and Touche and a U of A grad. So, Jason.
Thanks, Bruce. All right, good morning, everybody. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Okay, next up, Joe Danishevsky is going to lead us in the inspiration, but a couple of announcements I'd like to make. One is our very own Tom Willis, sitting back over here at the rowdy table, is proud to say that he is in remission. So Tom, we are so happy to hear that. One other announcement, many of the members in here know and remember Don Laidlaw. He was a member from 1985 to 2009. He did join us very briefly last year, and Rotary is going to be a little bit too much for him, but Tom passed away on the 7th, so if we could have a moment of silence for I said Tom, Don Laidlaw. So. Thank you. Joe, our inspiration.
From the desk of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. Today, 81 years later, the words Pearl Harbor still have a unique meaning to the American people. The image of the sunken USS Arizona, where half of the 2,403 casualties remain, still conveys one of our country's most lasting symbols. We salute and honor all that gave their life at Pearl Harbor and all the battlefields all over Africa, Asia, and Europe. We honor and salute all those who served in World War II. Please join me in a silent prayer as we remember them. Let us always remember.
Thank you, Joe. Also, I wanted to thank members. You know, Joe, your effort on the peace poll was greatly appreciated, and we had 20 members that turned out for that dedication. So appreciate everybody that was able to make it out there, and Joe for your work on that. Chris Dodge, introduction of guests.
Whoa, I almost knocked something over there. And I'm almost trying not to, I'll try not to do that. I won't adjust anymore. We have several guests with us today and some from other clubs. So if I call your name out, please stand up, wave, say hello. We'd love to say hello back to you and welcome you to the club. So visiting us all the way from Madison, the club in Madison, say hello to Alan and Kathy Korinsky. Hi, Alan and Kathy. Welcome. From all the way Chapala Sunrise, Mexico, Harvey Berner. Hi, Harvey. Welcome. All right. Guest of Waukee. Say hello to Mark Wierzbinski. Well, we just said hello. Hi, Mark. How you doing? Sorry. I'm getting there. Guest of Marcia. Say hello to Bruce Getz. Hi, Bruce. Guest of Ernie Montagna. Say hello to Paul Bellows. Hi, Paul. Guest of Hugh Thompson. Say hello to Tim Bowers. Hi, Tim. And say hello to Mary Bowers. Hi, Mary. Welcome. And guest of Leo Litsky. Say hello to Samuel Calapo. Hi, Samuel. Welcome. And guest of Leo Litsky. Say hello to Vaughn Kraft. Hey, Vaughn. And guest of Alan Rogers. Say hello to Roger Snap. Hey, Roger. That would be a great name if you have kids. Snap. All right, sorry. Guest of Tom Moulton, say hello to Tim Rotorto. Hi, Tim. And guest of Mark Irvin, say hello to Peter Paisley. Hi, Peter. Welcome. And I'm going to do this out of order right now. Pull out your tickets if you did raffle tickets. We've drawn. All right, and. We just want to have excitement right here at the beginning of the club meeting. I haven't counted it completely. It's around $70 if you win. 153989. 153989. Do we have a winner? Yay! All right. So you realize if we draw the king of clubs, it's about $1,700-1,800 additional dollars. And you're going to love this, or you're going to hate it, depending on how you view the world. It's a king of spades. Merry Christmas, everybody. All right, back to you.
Okay, and now the moment you've all been waiting for. The Reign of Terror is going to come up and take care of the introduction of our speaker, past President Bob Logan.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a long time, hasn't it? Thank you for clapping, Curtis. I appreciate it over there. You know, those of you that know me know I had a long career at the university. And 10 years was in athletics, where I was coaching football in bowl games and with Larry Smith, and then raising money with Lute Olson and Dick Tomey and all these big names in athletics. And then I spent 20 years in science. And I have to tell you, the real rock stars, the real people that don't get any of the attention are people like Marcia Rilke. And I'm not going to do a big introduction. The bio is on the table. You can read that. We're going to do a little 2-minute introduction that was done by the University of Arizona a couple of years ago. But I'm only going to say one thing about Marcia. She was inducted in the National Academy of Sciences, which is standard for great science. But she was also inducted in 2007 into what's called the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. So to give you an idea of the scale of the people that Marcia hangs out with, some of the people in this academy include Supreme Court justices, vice presidents and U.S. senators, people from New York Times, Washington Post, Apple Computer, Amazon, Smithsonian, United Nations, the Aspen Institute, NPR, and the CIA. I don't know who that person is. But who are really in there? Here's some names. Barack Obama, Nelson Mandela, Colin Powell, Oprah Winfrey, Phil Knight from Nike, and astronaut John Glenn. Those are the people that she hangs out with. So I'm wondering, before we do the video, can you get me some autographs at some point?
I regret to tell you that I've not actually gone to the...
So they don't meet monthly or weekly or anything? Okay. All right, you're going to be in for a treat to see some of the biggest science in our history, truly. Go ahead and play the 2-minute video.
Wonder means you don't know everything. And it's so fun to think about what else can we learn? How can we learn it? And there's so many galaxies out there, and to figure it all out, it's taken me all my life to get to where I am, and I still don't understand a lot of it. My favorite thing is what we don't know, and I'm going to go find out. I'm Marcia Rilke, and wonder made me become an astronomer. If you don't wonder at what you're studying and seeing, you've lost an element out of your life. an element of excitement and exploration. It's the spark that makes it all work. Scientists are real people that love what they're doing and are driven by wanting to understand the world around them. They wonder about how things work in the world, and that's what makes them go. The fact that I can be here on Earth and study something that happened 12 or 13 billion years ago is pretty astounding. Education is an essential part of this enterprise. I feel it's really important that everyone who goes through this university leaves with an appreciation of science, and I like to do that through the medium of astronomy. Find a place where the sky is really dark and just look out there and know that almost every one of those stars has some kind of planet around it. You see all that stuff and you can't help but wonder.
Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Rotarians, please give a rousing welcome to Dr. Marcia Rilke.
Thank you very much, Bob. And I have to tell you, some of those scenes were filmed up on the summit of Mount Lemmon, and the taping took a little bit longer than anticipated, so we were there a little bit later into the evening, and by the end, I was freezing. Okay, so what kind of that little piece was leading up to is what's happening now. After some more than 20 years, I finally got to see the James Webb Space Telescope in action, and I'm the lead investigator on one of the cameras. And the picture you're seeing up on the screen now is one of the first, what we call early release images that was taken in late June. And this is a region of the sky that is forming some new stars in the bottom half of the picture, so to speak. And one thing I have to tell you about this image, the James Webb Space Telescope is what we call an infrared telescope, which means that it takes images at wavelengths longer than your eye can see. Your eye would not see an image that looks like what's up on the screen. And so the way we make that image is, in a sense, it's a fake image. The sizes and geometric relationships of all the parts are very real. But the coloring was done in a way to highlight interesting features in the image. And so the colors, since the telescope sees light that your eye can't see, the colors are assigned in a collaboration between an astronomer and an artist at Space Telescope Science Institute. And so they do this to highlight what's interesting about the picture. So the top half of the image that's blue colored is showing you where there's not much material out in space. We usually think of space as a vacuum, but it actually in some regions has quite a bit of gas and dust that may come together to form a new star or new planets. And the bottom half of the picture that looks much more brown colored highlights those kinds of regions. And so an image like this can be both artistic and carry scientific meaning, which I think is kind of fun. But it does mean that if you went out in space to that location, you wouldn't see anything that looked like this because your eyes don't respond to those wavelengths, and things were colored to help guide our eye into something interesting about the picture. So you might ask, why is the University of Arizona a big participant in the Webb telescope? I'll show you in a couple of minutes that we are leaders of not one, but two of the four instruments attached to the telescope. And the reason is that it starts out with the climate in southern Arizona. It's very dry here. Water tends to absorb infrared radiation, so you like to be in a dry place, and you like to be on a high mountaintop if you're going to try to do infrared astronomy from the surface of the Earth. And so a lot of the early developments in infrared astronomy happened right here up on Mount Lemmon in particular. And so when the field of space infrared astronomy, that is launching telescopes into space, gained some prominence because technology got to the point where it was worth launching something in space. Pardon me. We naturally became leaders in this field because we had developed a lot of the techniques on the ground. And what you're seeing up there are four missions that were called the Great Observatories that were prominent particularly in the 1990s and early 2000s. Hubble Space Telescope was one of the components of this Great Observatories, and these four observatories spanned a large, broad range of wavelengths, so it's kind of like, there's an X-ray telescope, a visible light telescope, an infrared telescope, and so on. And we played a role in both Hubble and in the last of the great observatories called the Spitzer Space Telescope, part of which we built on campus. And so it was those missions that laid the groundwork for us to be very prominent when it came time to propose to build part of the Webb telescope. So, of course, Webb in space doesn't have Arizona state flags on it, but this is meant to indicates that we are leaders of two of the four instruments. And I think the university should be really proud of being able to do this. So let me explain the roles that we had. So this, on the right-hand side of the slide right now, you can see something that's quite gold-colored, and what you're seeing is one half of my instrument that's called the near-infrared camera. And so camera means it takes pictures, and in fact, that opening picture that I showed with the blue top and the brown bottom was comprised of images taken by my camera. And so you're now seeing the actual hardware. You're only seeing half of it. It's two identical halves because NearCam also has a role in aligning the mirror segments. The JWST, because it has to fold up, the mirror is made out of 18 separate hexagons, and I'll show you a little bit about what things look like when we first got on orbit. They wouldn't make a good picture initially. They had to be organized and aligned, and we knew that ahead of time, so that wasn't any kind of surprise. And then if I flick down, now you see another instrument that almost looks like it's on a tripod. That's my husband's instrument, which is called MIRI, the mid-infrared instrument. You're going to catch on that these names aren't very creative, but sometimes you get to have a creative name, but these were just indicative of what wavelength range they covered. And he's what's called the U.S. science team leader for that instrument, which was largely built as a collaboration between a consortium of 10 institutions in Europe, some of which were universities, the Jet Propulsion Lab, and the University of Arizona. But we didn't have a hardware role on MIRI. On NearCam, we actually machined and assembled some of the parts on campus, and I think it's a testament to the quality of the university that it has a machine shop. I mean, something you don't really think much about, but a machine shop that is NASA certified, and that makes our lives a lot easier when we're trying to build something. So why is it important to do infrared astronomy from space? I alluded to the fact that we became competitive by being very good at doing infrared astronomy from the ground. Well, it turns out the ground is a lousy place to do infrared astronomy. We only did that to begin with because it was a brand new field that really didn't get going until the 1960s. And we didn't have the kind of technology that would warrant the expense of a space launch, and so we had to build up to that. But if you look at this picture of a man in a blast furnace, or in front of a blast furnace, he's holding a match. And you can see that it's kind of hard to see the flame from the match against the background of that blast furnace. And when we try to do infrared astronomy from the ground, it's a similar thing. The telescope, the atmosphere, they're all emitting infrared radiation. And in fact, all your bodies emit infrared radiation too. I could make an infrared picture of you guys. You might not like it though, because if you wear glasses, your eyes become black because glass doesn't transmit, and so on. So we won't do that. But you can see that working where there's a big background is bad. It's hard to see things. So if we go to space, we can cool the telescope. Can't do that on the ground because you know what would happen. Water would freeze on it. We'd be like dew in the morning and so on. It would be a mess. So if you want to get your telescope cold, you have to go to space. And bingo, if you go to space, you get rid of the blast furnace, and now you can see the little speck that was the match. It's actually hard to see, isn't it? Even so, but you could never see it with that background. So that's what it's like to go into space, have a cold telescope, and see things that you cannot see otherwise. And of course, here's George and me at Northrop Grumman when the telescope was assembled and getting ready for launch. That's as close as I actually ever got to the telescope itself. It's inside a big clean room, and they don't like random people getting in there, but they kindly let us have a viewing before launch. So last Christmas was a red letter day for me. The mission launched December 25th at 5:20 a.m. here, which meant that I hadn't gotten up that early on a Christmas morning since I was a little kid sneaking down to the Christmas tree. So we saw the launch, and of course, one thing that makes you always scared when you're doing a science mission or a rocket-based mission is that 1% of all rockets tend to blow up on launch. No, we didn't want to think about that. Of course, this one didn't blow up. It launched from an unusual location. It launched from Kourou in French Guiana because the European Space Agency is one of our big collaborators on this project, and they provided the rocket. And so, of course, we launched from their site, not our site, and the telescope and instruments were taken from Northrop Grumman in Los Angeles to the launch site by boat through the Panama Canal. So it had a little voyage of its own before it actually got launched. So you can see the launch, and that went absolutely perfectly. It went so well that, in fact, the injection into the final orbit used less fuel than it might have. And so the mission, which originally had a 5-year requirement for lifetime, we think it might last for 20 years because it takes a little bit of fuel to keep it positioned in its orbit out at this place we call L2, which lets us have kind of formation flying between the Earth and the Webb telescope. You can kind of see that in the upper right figure there. And this L2 position is the name L2 means Lagrangian second point, and it's a point where gravity has kind of balanced between Earth, Moon, Sun. So it's a nice place, but it's not perfectly stable, so we have to use fuel to stay there. And the telescope is about 4 times further away from the Earth than the Moon. So that quote that I have there from the head of NASA Science, Dr. Zurbuchen, it said, "No servicing, we had to get it right the first time." And he said, those who are not worried or even terrified about this are not understanding what we're trying to do. And so the way that we made certain we didn't need to service it was there was an enormous amount of testing before launch, and we had rehearsals and you name it, but it all paid off. And it paid off in the sequence shown in the lower left there, where once we got up into space, we had to unfold the telescope and had to unfold its sun shield, which is required to keep sunlight, earthlight, moonlight off the telescope so it doesn't warm up, so the telescope can get cold. So give you a little sample of the power of infrared observations. This is a set of 3 images. Many people remember the one on the left from Hubble. It's sometimes called the Pillars of Creation because these clouds of dust are where stars are indeed creating or forming. And that's the left-hand one is the Hubble picture, shows you what you see in visible light, where dust blocks a lot of what you might see. The middle image is taken with my camera, which penetrates dust very nicely. Not completely, the dust in this region is very thick, but you can see many more stars, and it's hard to see in this scale picture, but there are some places where the choice of filters revealed some places where stars are forming right now, and we can be assured of that. And then the right-handmost image shows you what this looks like to the mid-infrared instrument, where that dust that obscures the starlight, absorbs it, blocks it like a sandstorm can block the sunlight, where that dust is emitting. The dust gets heated up because it absorbs starlight, and then it makes more infrared radiation. So you can kind of see why astronomers want a variety of ways to look at the universe. You learn something different from each view. So after we got up into space and we'd unfolded, the fact that the mirror was made out of these 18 segments had to be accounted for. And so the first thing we had to do was find out which way was each of those segments pointing into space. It was like 18 little separate telescopes, because the launch vibrations jiggled things and left things in slightly uncertain positions. But the engineers estimated that the worst case would be that the segments would point such that the 18 star images that they were making would be spread over an area as big as the full moon, which is why the moon appears on this slide. We didn't look at the moon. We can't look at the moon because it's on the wrong side relative to where we're trying to keep the light off the telescope. And the grid in blue on the right-hand side is the set of images we thought we would have to take with NIRCam to make certain that we found the light from all 18 of these segments. So we were going to do this big raster scan to find the images. Well, it turns out that the very first clue that our lives were going to be going relatively smoothly with this mission came with the first images from this attempt to find the segments. And now you can see a part where the blue has disappeared. We found all 18 segments in a very small space, just a little bit off the nominal dead-on pointing. And so we found the 18 segments, and after we found the 18 segments, we had to tip and tilt all the 18 segments so that these images, one star seen 18 times, that they all piled up on top of each other and were what we call phased, so that the mirror would act as though it were a single, smooth, solid mirror, not something made out of 18 segments. And this was a press release after getting the telescope fully aligned, and the alignment is twice as good as any engineer would have signed up to. I mean, it was just spectacular, and that has lots of good ramifications for astronomers, let me tell you. If I blew up some of the detail on these images, you would see that even though we're working at a longer wavelength, we see more detail than Hubble sees. There is a little wavelength range where we overlap, and I would not have bet on that beforehand, but it was a testament to all this practice, all the care, everything that went into this. And just for fun, that image that I just showed you of the star all nicely lined up with its diffraction spikes, which make those 6 things that stick out of it. In the background of that image was this huge collection of distant galaxies, many of whom we'd never cataloged. And this is a repeating theme now with images from the Webb telescope. We say that the galaxies are photobombing every image because they show up even in ones where we wouldn't have thought we should be able to see them because we're looking too close to the plane of the Milky Way. But these infrared wavelengths penetrate dust, everything else, and galaxies are bright in the infrared. And so my heart's desire of finding galaxies is really coming to fruition here. And once we had the telescope all lined up, we checked out everything, the science projects could begin. And the first things to do were a set of sample images were taken to highlight the telescope's capabilities. There are a few of them here, and I'll come back to a couple of these in just a moment. But some of these were released in July, and there's been a continuing series of releases since then of different kinds of images highlighting different science projects. So now that it's up there and working, let me just go back to why a person like me who wants to study, a galaxy is a structure like our own Milky Way. And our Milky Way is one of, as Carl Sagan would say, billions and billions of galaxies. And what we would like to understand is how did they form after the Big Bang, and how did they come to have the shapes and things that we see now. And this gives you this little sequence I'm going to go through gives you a sense of what you learn from, again, these different missions in space. So this first image is from the Hubble Space Telescope, and it's hard to see in the projector, but there are some dust lanes that blot things out. Now, if we go 4 times longer in wavelength to NIRCam, it looks pretty similar, but if you blew this up and looked carefully, you would discover that NIRCam is seeing individual stars in this distant galaxy. It used to be that you only thought of doing that to galaxies that were very, very close to us. And now we can do it for ones that are quite a bit further away, which was, again, this is because the image quality is so good. And now if we go another 4 times in wavelength and go to where MIRI would take an image, you see that the galaxy suddenly looks completely different. And that's because MIRI sees dust emission and not the stars. And so it's like doing tomography. You get very different slices through what the galaxy is made of. And so astronomers use this suite of instruments to put back together again the whole structure of the galaxy from these separate images. This now is kind of project that's near and dear to my heart, and it's what my team is spending a lot of time on. This particular pair of images are of a field that we're not studying. This was one of the early release observations, but it's flicking back and forth between a Hubble image and a Webb image. And the Hubble image looks a little bit yellower and greeny, but if you could look at this closely, you would find that there are a number of objects in this image that don't appear in the Hubble image, but do appear in the Webb image. And that's telling us that there are some objects where the expansion of the universe has shifted their light so much to the red that Hubble can't see them because Hubble's not an infrared telescope. It also may be saying that some of those distant galaxies have so much dust in them that dust blots out the visible light, but we can see them with Webb. And so what we're doing right now is analyzing a lot more data of this sort, and we hope to put together a whole montage of how galaxies have changed over time, going all the way back to just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang, much closer to the Big Bang than Hubble could penetrate. The other project I want to touch on is one about what we call exoplanets. And sometimes people relate to exoplanets better than galaxies because we live on a planet. And an exoplanet just means a planet orbiting a star, not our own sun, but another star out inside the Milky Way galaxy. And we now know of something like nearly 5,000 planets orbiting other stars. Some of those stars have several exoplanets, some only have one. But if the arrangement is just right, we can see what happens when the exoplanet goes across the face of its parent star. And if we don't see the kind of picture you see on the left-hand side, you can see a picture of the sun with a little black dot. That was from an event back in 2012 when Venus passed between us on Earth and the sun, and it blotted out a little bit of sunlight. So if things are lined up just right, you can see a planet on the face of its star. For these distant stars, we don't actually see a little black dot. What we see is what you see in the bottom part of the right-hand picture, where when an exoplanet goes across the face of its parent star, it blots out a little bit of light, and we can measure that disappearance if we have a good accurate instrument, which I can tell you the ones on Webb are great. And if you go one step further, if you spread out the light from the star when the planet is behind the star, so it's not blotting out any light, and then take another, what we call spectrum, where you split the light up into its, like putting it through a prism, so you get it in its different colors. If you take one when the planet is in front of the star, you can see where some of the atmosphere of that exoplanet absorbs the starlight. And you might think, well, okay, big deal. But if we study how that absorption happens, we can detect molecules in that exoplanet atmosphere. So we could tell whether that exoplanet atmosphere, say, has water or carbon dioxide or oxygen, you name it. Now, doing that kind of study doesn't tell you whether there's life or not on the planet, but it gives you a good clue about what kind of a planet and what kind of an atmosphere it is, whether it might be hospitable to life. And one of the ones that was observed recently, so this is, I know people don't always like graphs, but this is a graph, and along the horizontal direction is the wavelength of light that is being recorded, and the vertical direction is how much of the light at a wavelength is absorbed. So higher up means more light has gotten absorbed. And this particular wavelength and shape means that this exoplanet has carbon dioxide, and actually a fair bit of carbon dioxide in its atmosphere. And so we can study a greenhouse gas on an exoplanet, and it may be, we're not going to be observing these over a long enough time span to literally see climate change, but we might be able to do it in a statistical sense by looking at lots of planets. But what we really want to do, the sort of Goldilocks thing we'd like, is this is now another kind of spectrum. This one is showing the dips are where the molecules are. This is what the pattern would look like in a graph if we observed an exoplanet with an atmosphere like our own. And I hope that before too many more years go by, we will be able to show that we found an exoplanet with an atmosphere like our own. Doesn't prove life is there, but at least it proves there's a place that would be like what we would think of as where life could exist. So stay tuned for that one. It's not an easy observation because an Earth-like planet doesn't blot out very much of its parent starlight. So let me just finish off by saying that as great as Webb is, there's still more to do, and there's even more to do on the ground, because Webb doesn't work at visible light. It works only in the infrared, and we now have techniques where we can get better than Hubble Space Telescope detail from ground-based telescopes. And one of the ones that the university is building right now is called the Giant Magellan Telescope. And it has, as you can see in the picture there, it has a hexagonal pattern again, but each one of those is huge. And you can see the Webb mirror in gold there superposed on one of the sections of the Giant Magellan Telescope. And because we now know that JWST can last for a long time because of this wonderful orbit injection, we'll be able to use these missions together sometime in the future once we get the GMT finished. And the university is working hard to raise the funds for that. We're building the mirrors in the mirror lab under the football stadium, and we're well on our way to having something that complements the Webb telescope as it should be complemented at visible light. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
So Bruce says I can take a couple
You
questions.
take a couple questions.
Sure.
And birthday boy gets
Thank
first
you very
choice.
much for those wonderful remarks. I want to go back to the pillars of life, and I would like to know First, how far away that is, and what is the scale of that picture? I mean, in light years or whatever it is.
Okay, so that the stuff that you're seeing in that image is stuff that where it takes light about 1,500 years to get here, which means it's within the Milky Way, but it's not right next door. And I forget the exact height of those pictures, but I think the height of those pillars is a fair fraction of a light year, so it's big. I mean, on the scale of people.
We have one more question, Patrick, over there.
Given your great experience through the years, and there's much research to be done, what's the biggest surprise that you've obtained so far?
The biggest surprise is that we are finding lots of galaxies that Hubble could not see. There were many people that said, yeah, but everyone had faith that the Hubble telescope was the end all and be all. But we have found there may be half again as many galaxies that we see that Hubble didn't, and no one predicted that. But stay tuned, I'm sure there's going to be bigger surprises yet.
Thank you.
Marcia, thank you. That is just mind-boggling, For our guests that you might not know, we end up getting a book that we ask our speaker to go ahead and sign, and Carrie and Dorina do an amazing job. We donate this to Make Way for Books. We've had Marcia sign the James Webb Space Telescope. So, how's that for a perfect book? Now, moving on to birthdays quickly, first up is Ernie. His birthday was on the 3rd. He's been with us since September of 2019. Retired Operations Analysis, Rice University, the School to the North, and George Washington University. But something that you didn't know, which I thought was pretty interesting, Ernie, is he was a certified professional ski instructor at resorts in both Pennsylvania and Arizona in the 90s. And basically he would help people like myself learn how to ski. So Ernie, come on up.
Thank you very much, President Bruce. Just 2 weeks ago, we completed another successful ride to end polio. And I want to recognize and pay tribute to my friend Mike Harris, spouse of club member Charlotte Harris, for his role as progenitor of the ride. In 2009, Mike asked members of the Rotary Club of Catalina to ride in El Tour to Tucson and raise funds in support of polio eradication. The next year, he asked me, as district governor, to make the ride a district project. And I said, sure, so we could raise more money and get more riders. And although I had not been on a bike in 25 years, I committed to riding 66 miles with Mike and the Rotary team. Unfortunately, Mike was diagnosed with cancer and passed away just a few months later. But his legacy lives on because the Michael J. Harris Memorial Ride to End Polio has raised $60 million to support polio eradication. I believe Mike is the exemplar and the embodiment of the power of one. And I'm fortunate and honored to have been able to be a part of this effort every year since. And I've already made my contribution to Polio Plus online. Thank you.
Thank you, Ernie. Next up, Bobby Larson, birthday yesterday. Is medical health care assisted living. I think most people know he has the Villas Assisted Living, U of A grad. even though you might know that he owns those, is I thought this was fascinating. He's owned and operated 43 homes with 430 assisted living memory care beds in Tucson and Green Valley for the past 18 years, and the last 7 years in a row has been named the best assisted living and memory care unit in Southern Arizona. Bobby, come on up.
Thank you, everybody. Main thing I wanted to say today was thank you all very much for all you did to make this car show the success that it was. And it was everybody in here, and we were very lucky. I was extremely lucky because I got to meet a lot of people that I didn't know, and I also got to know a lot of people better than I sure did before. So I feel very lucky to have gotten to do that. Lee, you're going to get the same opportunity now, so hats off to you. And this check is for the Ukraine, please. And again, thank you all, and have a great holidays.
Thank you, Bobby. Alan Schroep, we're glad to have you back in the club. Joined January of this year, but he had been in from 07 through 13. His birthday is on the 13th. Is recently opened up Camp Bow Wow, so he's just waiting for you to bring your pets there to get better behavior. But something that you didn't know is he married his wife in Acapulco, and this coming March they'll be celebrating their 20-year anniversary in Puerto Vallarta. So, Alan, come on up.
Thank you, President Bruce. I love this time of year, so I'm back in the club, and when I get to sit up here and I get to see everybody, it just reminds you just how much I appreciate this club. And one of the things I want to point out, while I was away, we went through the COVID, and in that time, I think it was with President Bob, there was the Facebook Lives. Facebook Lives kept popping up, and my wife and I were in Indiana, and we decided this is ridiculous. We're coming back to Tucson, and this club was a big part of that. So I want to thank my mentor and sponsor, Marianne Freitas, for bringing me back in, and then my original sponsor, Jeff Ronstadt. And I've got a check here for the Ukraine as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but not least, Cam Moore. His birthday's the 16th. Been with us since 2007. Arizona Business Equipment. Something that many of you didn't know, he grew up in Sonoyta, and as a kid he was involved in 4-H, and one year he made it all the way to the state showing with his little horse. Cam, come on up.
Thank you very much. That story is really only significant because there's a considerable difference between showing animals in Sonoyta versus showing animals against a lot of those Scottsdale girls in Phoenix. So anyway, needless to say, I didn't play so well that year. But this is a huge honor. I appreciate the acknowledgement for my birthday. I think it's probably been since 2013, the last time Alan and I shared this stage before he left. But I'd like to thank my sponsor, Marianne Freitas. Was 2007, just before Danica was born, and she's a 14-year-old now. So anyway, It's been some time. So I want to thank you all. You all are my mentors, and I appreciate you very much. I, too, have a check for President Bruce here, and I'd like this to go to the Ukraine Fund. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Is Rob Lemaster, Rob's in the house, is we have a introduction of a new member. So come on up. Actually, while they're on their way up here, I do want to mention, thank you for those contributions toward Ukraine. I just wanted to let everybody know if anybody else wants to donate, we had sort of designated today as the cutoff. Charlotte will take checks, but we have, as far as members go, we have exceeded over $12,000 in donations coming from our members. So thank you very much. With the matching funds from the club, as well as the funds from the foundation, we're over $22,000, which means that when that gets matched by RI International, we'll be up at $44,000. Earlier this year, we donated $35,000. So you guys have really made a huge impact. So thank you. Come on up.
Thank you, President Bruce. I'm very honored to introduce as a new member my friend Denise Waters. And a little bit of information about Denise. She's originally from the D.C. area. You see she's a Maryland Terrapin. And she arrived in Tucson in 2018 when her husband moved here with Raytheon in their classified space. I guess we can't talk about that. She dove immediately into the community, volunteering with Make-A-Wish and co-chairing our Southern Arizona Wishmakers Council, but also getting involved in the Arizona Bowl, co-chairing that committee, and became a board member at the Boys and Girls Club in 2019. Is that correct? And was named board chair in 2021, not knowing what she was getting into because of leadership change. She is now the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Tucson. So you got voluntold all the way to the top there. A couple of fun things about her is that she was an executive and corporate officer for national and international companies, even worked at United Technologies, a Fortune 50 company that merged with Raytheon. And that allows her to continue to be involved in the community. But some fun things about Denise. She started a wine and book club that now travels. Anybody been invited to that? I haven't. Also, she drove her husband Muddy's Corvette from D.C. to Tucson when they moved here, and I know that was a tough task to have to drive the Corvette across country. She played Division I tennis for 2 years. She has 2 sons and has a COVID chow puppy that's now not really a puppy anymore, named Tough. She likes to ski, and this is very important, and you need to remember this for when we have mixers. She loves red wine, a good red wine, sorry, I need to qualify that, Prosecco, and an old-fashioned. So, Denise Waters.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's always nice to have someone talk about you and stand there and go, really, I did all that. I'm thrilled to be here in Tucson. The community has been so welcoming to me. I have a passion, obviously, for youth and development, so I'm fulfilling that dream, and I'm just thrilled to be part of Rotary. So thank you for welcoming me.
All right, Charlotte, we have another Paul Harris presentation. So, Charlotte, come on up.
The presentation of the Paul Harris Fellow recognition to the Rotaries is the Rotary Foundation's way of expressing its appreciation for substantial contributions to humanitarian and educational purposes. In addition to completing a Paul Harris Fellow for herself, fellow Rotarian Walkie Redsar Wisbinski has designated a Paul Harris Fellow as a tribute to her husband, Mark, whose life demonstrates a shared purpose with the objectives of the Rotary Foundation. It gives me great pleasure to present our 2 newest Paul Harris Fellow recognitions, who are both wearing their new recognition pins. Walkie is receiving her Paul Harris Fellow +2. She was born and raised in Indonesia and immigrated to America after she graduated from college with a Bachelor of Arts and settled in the Los Angeles suburb. She earned an associate degree of liberal arts from Chaffey College, then moved to Tucson in 1994, forged her career in land planning and development and real estate, and earned an associate degree from Pima College in architectural drafting. Walkie is currently a broker and a principal of WVR Realty and Consulting. She is also a breast cancer survivor, 3 years in remission now, happily sharing, quote, "Praise the Lord." And she is also a proud and happy Rotarian. She joined Rotary because she believes in its mission to make the world a better place by service above self, to fight diseases in the world, and to support children's education. The best part of being a Rotarian is the friendship and camaraderie between the members. Mark is receiving his Paul Harris Fellow +1 gifted to him by Walkie. He was born in Boston and moved to Ontario, California when he was 6 months old, growing up as an independent child with entrepreneurial ability since he was 7 years old, picking up golf balls in the lake at Arrowhead Country Club and then selling them back to the golf shop. He also cleaned up yards and mowed lawns for neighbors and more. He was also a professional skateboarder at one point in his life. Mark moved to Tucson at age 29 and started his own company in a real estate investment business as a general contractor, being a landlord and flipping houses very successfully. Mark met Milwaukee at our open house 9 years ago, and they were married 2 years later. They are both semi-retired now and enjoy seeing and traveling the world, fishing trips, hunting trips, and skiing trips while they can. Oh, but wait a minute, before we offer their congratulations. We have our traditional gift of little or no value. And we are pleased to share that there's been an excess of available houses in the market at this time, and we have another 3-bedroom gingerbread house for you to share. So please join me in congratulating our newest Paul Harris Fellows. Thank you.
All right, I think we can skip right over the drawing slide because we know what happened there. What other I want to mention before I run through these slides, and that is, Ernie touched on it, the Ride to End Polio. Our members this year is the contributions were basically right at $20,000, which with the 2-to-1 Gates match is there's going to be another $60,000 going toward polio. So again, the generosity of our members is just absolutely outstanding. So quick update on my miles. November I did just shy of 190 miles. I think I had told you my goal was a minimum of 5 miles a day, so I averaged a little over 6. So that puts me 964 miles from Tucson. So if I was heading south, I would have wandered through Guadalajara by now. And if I was heading east, I'm about 40 miles outside of Houston, through Houston. And I was in Houston for the convention, and it was hot and humid, so I might as well just keep going toward the coast. So, holiday mixer was mentioned. That's going to be next Wednesday, so we will be dark. If you have not signed up, please do so. The deadline is for this Friday, so we know, as far as with the caterer, to order the appropriate amount of food. So, who is announcing the hike?
Heading in for Chris Dodge, you had to leave. Blackett's Ridge, Sunday, December 11th. The meet time is 7:30 a.m. at the Sabino Canyon East Gate. Be there.
Perfect. Joe Pennington, where are you? I guess he's coming up here.
Last week I talked to you about having a week of so much fun that you couldn't remember. That is the International Ski Fellowship of Rotarians. I've heard Ernie say that he was a former skier, or maybe still is, and others who have said that skiing is one of the activities they enjoy. Walkie, if you would. The ISFR raises money to help adaptive skiers. It's a wonderful program. It's a week in Park City this year, starting on March the 4th. We've all got time to get in shape and go out and have as much fun as we can have. Thank you very much.
Dan, can we get a microphone for Jeannie Zeta? Jeannie, where are you? Oh, she's right. Oh, already has a mic. And then the next one we're going to need is for Joe. Jeannie, take it away. Oh. All right. Hey, Dorena, this is not the correct order. Come on up, Joe.
Well, it's always great to see that we have a new Blue Badge member. And I'm very proud as his mentor to be able to give you some interesting things that you don't know about Rich Kenny. So he said he was along the lines, he grew up as a Yankee fan, and but then he came to his senses being born in New Hampshire and became a Red Sox fan. So the question is, I know you're a Wildcat fan.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. He founded a social media startup in Germany in the late 90s. He loves Bordeaux, Reds, and Scottish Terriers, not in that order. He devours New York Times on the weekend and considers it a civic duty to be well informed. Likes company of others and good conservation. The most interesting place he's been to is Angkor Wat in Cambodia. So, let's hear it for our newest Rotary Blue Badge member. And Rich is going to say a few words.
Well, thank you, Joe. You've been a great mentor, and thank you, Doug Lowell, for being my sponsor. It's been great to get to know everybody, and I look forward to getting to know more people. Thank you.
Well, Dorena, my dyslexia kicked in. That's why I was thinking Jeannie was for, so my humble apologies. I should never doubt you. Jeannie.
I knew Dorena would have the slide there for me. So I'm here to tell you that on New Year's Eve, you have a chance to have a wonderful time at a masquerade gala being sponsored by the Casa Grande Daybreak Club up at the Paramount Theater in Casa Grande. And there are rooms at the Radisson, because we just made one for staying overnight. It starts at 8 o'clock, goes to 1 o'clock in the morning. There's dinner, dancing, fun games, and it's going to raise money for the Rotary Youth Exchange Program in District 5500, which is near and dear to my heart. Secondly, they're having a silent auction, and I know with us not having a big auction, if anybody here had auction items they really wish they could put into an auction for a good cause, please let me know and I'll make sure they could get into the silent auction. Thirdly, Pelayo is going to be leaving the Hoffman's house on the 16th and over vacation. Just wanted to let you know that he'll be at our house, with my husband and me, from the 16th to the 19th, and then he'll be at the Doolings until the 28th, at which point he goes to Faye Morris and Eric Smith's house for the next 3 months. So if you want to get together with him, please let us know. And lastly, we are still looking for a spring host family starting in April. So keep that in mind as you meet with people that love foreign exchange students. Thanks.
Jeannie, thank you so much. Okay, in order to wrap up today, again, I want to thank everybody for coming. Really appreciate the guests that turned out today. I hope maybe you like what you saw, and if you have some interest in finding out a little bit more about Rotary, is ask any one of us in this room. If you don't regularly put into the scholarship cups, if you have a few extra dollars that you might be able to put in there, that would be greatly appreciated. And again, I do want to thank those that have been sponsoring me walking across the country so far this year. So in order to wrap up, Ernie, Bobby, Alan, Cam, happy birthday. Is Denise, welcome to the club. Is Waukee and Mark, congratulations on your latest Paul Harris. Is, again, next week we will be dark. It's going to be the holiday mixer. I do want to wish everybody, since this is our only meeting in December, a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and I hope everybody has a very safe and healthy time over the holidays, and a very Happy New Year. We'll look forward to seeing everybody in January. So now for a toast. Few quick quotes I wanted to cover. Space is an inspirational concept that allows you to dream big. Don't tell me the sky's the limit when there's footprints on the moon. Henry Ford said, "The time will come when a man will know even what's going on other planets and perhaps be able to visit them." So a toast to the University of Arizona and the work they have done on the James Webb Telescope and to the new discoveries that are becoming realities. Hear, hear. We are adjourned.
Thank you so much, Bruce.
Absolutely.
I want you to know